Are you curious about bodies, pleasure, and possibilities? And what about curious about what others are up to on the planet when it comes to pleasure, sex, and play? Have you considered what pleasure can do for your life, your body, and your bank account? Do you know something magical, delightful, and out of this world orgasmic is not only possible for you, but totally available to you? If you're ready to be the magical, sexual, sexy beast you know you can be, and you just need the tools to get there, you're in the right place. Now, here's the host of The Pleasure Zone, sensual movement artist, relationship and sex alchemist, Milica Jelenic.
Well, welcome, sweet pleasure seekers. I am so pleased to have you here with me today, sharing in this very cool, very awesome episode called The Indisputable Gift of Men with my guest, Danna Lewis. For those of you who don't know who Danna is, it's because you haven't snuck over to other shows on the Inspire Choices Network. Danna's been on, I think, as long as I have, pretty much almost like to the months, pretty close. So she has lots of episodes in her archives, and her show is called Luscious Leadership. And after years and years of hearing women, including herself, she says, complain about men, Danna actually found herself just collecting a bunch of intimate stories that invite you to unlock caustic, emasculating, judgmental conversations around dating and relationships. So her book is actually a collection of this, and the book is called The Indisputable Gift of Men. I love that title because I love that it's indisputable. As if, you know what, it's like you can't argue this. There's a gift here that you can't argue. And I love that you are just like putting it out there that women, if you want to try and argue this, you cannot. Men, if you want to try and argue this, you cannot. There's a gift here and we need to look at it. So I've always, since I've seen your title, really love the title of your book, Danna. Danna is a personal leadership coach, conscious business advisor, energy healer, empath. She has over 20 years of business experience at COO level roles from high growth startups to Fortune 500 companies, and over 10 years of transformational education based in quantum physics and consciousness. I personally love quantum physics. It's like the main thing that I do in my life. So I love having conversations with other people who are into quantum physics and consciousness. It's so fun for me. And Dan has also co-authored 3 Amazon best-selling books as well. This one, The Indisputable Gift of Men, is her first solo book. And even when she was putting this out around social media a little while ago to get everybody revved up and excited about knowing the book was coming, I had contacted her about coming on to talk about this because I think it's such a great topic. And the last episode that we had was a book, an author of a book called Conscious Cock. So we've had, it's been a bit of a men series lately. And it's both are, I'm sure, fabulous. Well, I've listened to Conscious Cock, which is a great book. And I'm so looking forward to reading The Indisputable Gift of Men. It is on my next to buy list. So, yes. So Danna, I just want to say thank you so much for saying yes to me, because this is such an odd time of night to be having shows. I know that most of the shows on our station are during the day, and there are me and Christine McIver and Aideen T. Finola who just decide to go late at night and
I love it.
have adventures into the deep night. So
thank you, Milica, so much for having me. And it's for me. So it's 5:00. The sun's going down because it's winter, so all of that. But it's such a cool time of night. Like, I had a great day, and I'm like, this is, Keisha, the after dinner team. It just feels really great to be having this conversation. I'm sorry, I know I was giggling because when you said collection, I was like, is she going to say a collection of men? Because I didn't know what was coming when you said collection. And then to follow that up with a book titled The Conscious Cock, and here I thought, my book is, maybe it's not PG, but it's. I don't think it's that either. So it's pretty awesome.
It's kind of, your book is like in between, like, for sure. I would say like some pretty startup kind of relationship books to, like, Conscious Cock is pretty hardcore, but yeah, to speak to the masses is a different level. So this is very cool. So Danna, what what was it, about the things women were saying that had you spark the idea of creating this collection of intimate stories?
Wow. I just remember, so when I moved to San Francisco, which was a little over 12 years now, I had just gotten divorced. Actually, my divorce wasn't quite final. Like it was done, and just, it was that the court date where you go and everything gets finalized. That hadn't occurred yet. But I knew that I wanted to move to San Francisco. So, my lawyer's like, we're good. And my ex-husband and I were good. And so I moved, and I was honestly I thought I was ready for a lot, ready and excited to date. Like, I was so excited. I'm like, oh my God, I'm moving to San Francisco. Like, it's, to me, one of the most charming, romantic cities, right? So I am such a pragmatic, but I'm also such a gushy romantic. So I'm like, oh my God, San Francisco is going to be so amazing and juicy. So that was my point of view, right? And then I was dating before I even had any friends here. My two brothers lived here, so I knew my brothers and their wives, and my one brother had the triplets were 5 at the time. They're talked about in the book. They're 17 now. So I really didn't know that many people, but I was just gung-ho to get out there and start dating, and so that's what I did pretty quickly. And so I was having this great time, but I remember, because when you live in a city, you walk a lot, and you're in cafes, and, it's like a movie, right? Like, it really is like that. And so you overhear conversations. I think, to me, maybe more often than when you're in the suburbs. I don't know. I could be making that up in my head. But I just know that I was overhearing a lot of conversations because I'd be out walking, and you're walking next to people, and women are, chatting and walking, or you're in the coffee shop or out for a glass of wine. And so you just overhear a lot of chatter and conversation. And there was just this conversation going on about how San Francisco was, I guess I can, if we say cock, I can say shitty. A shitty city to, exactly, right, to date in, and just, I don't even want to repeat all of it, but they were just bitching, so much bitching and complaining about how shitty dating was and how whatever, just a lot of blame at the men, and it was just an ongoing thing. And then I also, I sitcoms, like there was this similar thread in the sitcoms with not so much the dating, but it was like the next level. When you look at a sitcom and there's a married couple, I swear to God, like 9 times out of 10, the man is portrayed as like this bubbling idiot that can't really do anything. And it pissed me off, right? It just really... it bothered me so much, and I don't even, it just does. It just has always really bothered me. That's kind of how some of this got started.
I love that. I love that what it is I wasn't sure at first what sparked it, and I love that it actually wasn't just like a retaliation to the hashtag #MeToo movement, but it actually was something before that you've kind of always been aware of. Because as much as there's these movements going on, and then there's these counterbalance movements going on, everything about those is actually creating more stress and more anger. And so this is actually looking at the gift rather than looking at the blame or trying to defend. So can you tell me what it was that kind of developed the Indisputable Gift of Men as the title and what that means to you?
Oh, I have so much to say about this. So, first of all, the thing with me too, like, yes, I talk about that a little bit in the book because I'm like, I have to acknowledge this. It's like the elephant in the room, and it's relevant, obviously, and required, and I don't want to dismiss or diminish anything that's occurred for any woman in that respect, right? Like, that stuff has occurred. That's going on. There's people that are addressing that, and women that are coming together, and men that are showing up, to support that movement. But this book was written before that. I mean, like I said, this book, 80%, 85% of it was written over like 11 years ago. I'm losing track of dates, but it was about 11 years ago. And it really came from like what we were talking about, just hearing the complaining and the bitching and the sniping, and then the stuff that was going on TV, coupled, all of that mixed together with me going, but I'm two things. One, I was having these amazing encounters and relationships and dating. I was also going through a lot of heartbreak. I mean, of course, I came to San Francisco and thought, it's gonna be so easy. I mean, I thought I would have met someone very quickly and kind of just been on my way. And I'm so grateful now that didn't occur, because I realize that that's just me in the world. Is I am an experiential person, and so I have to have these experiences and kind of alchemize them and share them with people. That's just who I be in the world. So all this is going on, and I just remember I was like, okay, I was talking to the universe. I'm like, what? This, what? Well, what? WTF? Like, what is all of this? Like, what is? Because I just have always known, even going back to there's always something bigger at play. Always something bigger, especially when, for me, hopefully a lot of people get that about themselves, but I'm like, there's just more here. There's just more. I always had that sense of there's just something else, and I'm playing a bigger, role maybe. I get that now. I didn't get that then, but I knew there was something else. So when I was asking the universe, like, what the heck is going on, and I talk about that, I think it's in the first chapter, where I was up in the middle of the night one night and in my living room and just going, what? And it just came. And that's when the book started coming through. It was like, hey, this is what's going on. Like, something about this. Like, you're here to share something. So that was then. And then it just sat, and it would pull on me every so often. I just was not ready. And maybe the world wasn't ready. And I brought it I had a connection to a big publishing house, actually, and they liked it. They were interested in it, and they were like, wow, this is really interesting. But they actually were like, we're not quite sure what genre this would be. Is this a dating book, or is this a self-help book? And I was like, I'm so glad I didn't do anything with it then, because it's grown. It's like I've grown up, it's grown up, and so it's so much more, right, than like a dating book. It's a dating book, it's a relationship book, it's a consciousness book, it's so many things at once. And so it had some other working titles back in the day. I think at one point I had it titled Delicious Dating, and then Magic of Men, which then that remember that movie came out about the Magic Mike.
Oh, Magic
that doesn't
Mike,
work.
yeah.
Right? So
yeah.
So this spring, fast forward to this past spring, I had just cleaned house, I feel like, with my life, after this decade of living in San Francisco, and just the deepest healing I've ever, at least in this lifetime, have gone through, really deep spiritual, cosmic, conscious work, and went through, a lot of people know, a 4-year relationship that came to an end, and then I was in a job that was just such not a good fit with, I was the COO and she was the CEO. And so there was just a lot of things that were coming to an end that I was clearing out of the kinds of people that I need to be around and what's going to create greater in the world for me and for other people. And so a publisher came to me based on what, I've done in the past with all the stuff you mentioned at the beginning of the show. And so they asked if I had, do you want to write a book? I'm like, I already have a book. Let's go. I was just ready. Cool. And the book was screaming at me. So the title came because there's so much to this. The title came, and I love how you described it, Milica, because that's exactly why I chose that word. It's not a word I use in my regular vocabulary, but it just dropped into my awareness, indisputable. Because it's exactly what you said. You cannot argue with it. And so when you tie that into consciousness, like what you said, you love consciousness, and when you empower someone to know what they know, which is what I am doing in this book, that is my target, to empower women to what they know and to go into those past stories and revisit those men or the man that they're with now. When they come to that awareness of what the gifts are for them, it is indisputable, because it's their own awareness and it's their own knowing, and nobody can ever take that away from them. And that's why it's the indisputable gift of men.
I love that. I wonder how many women who are going to be reading your book will go, or how many of the women who actually bitch about men will read your book, and then their point of view about men might open up, and some of their points of view will be abolished, and then maybe we can be more loving to each other. What a crazy concept. But I love when books can literally change people, and my sense is this one can do that. So I'm excited to continue this conversation. For those of you listening, you're listening to The Pleasure Zone here on Inspired Choices Network, and we'll be right back after this commercial.
Are you secretly a voyeur, wondering what's going on in other people's sex lives? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual evolution? Are you interested in people who are pioneers of different sexual and pleasurable practices? Lean in now with Milica Jelenic, where she will entice you and your body to know your own pleasure zone. On the Pleasure Zone radio show with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic, you'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life, and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for The Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Are you a subject matter expert? Are you here to share your expertise with an audience waiting to hear from you in only the way you can deliver? Are you ready to have your voice amplified across the airwaves? Inspired Choices Network has a global radio platform streaming to millions of people across the world. Professionally produced and supported by an accomplished team every step of the way, you can broadcast from anywhere in the world, knowing your voice matters, and we ensure it is delivered with ease and efficiency. Eager to hear your message, the world awaits. Contact us today to become an Inspired Choices Network radio host. Email becomeahost@inspiredchoicesnetwork.com.
This is The Pleasure Zone with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today from the U.S., call 815-880-TALK. That's 815-880-8255. From Canada, dial 613-800-8736. Or you can Skype us at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. Or send your questions or comments via email to info@MilicaJelenic.com. Now, back to the program.
Hello, sweet pleasure seekers. Welcome back to the Pleasure Zone. Today, I'm talking with Danna Lewis, who is also a host on Inspired Choices Network with her show Luscious Leadership. And today, I've invited her to come on and talk about The Indisputable Gift of Men, which is both a book she wrote, and I also feel it's an awareness that she has about the world and about men and about how we are in the world. So it's not just a book to me. I feel like it's her awareness. So we're talking about it from many perspectives. And being on the Pleasure Zone, I'd like to go into the naughty zone. And so, Danna, what are some of the things that you feel are indisputable gifts of men in relation to pleasure?
I love this question. I knew, I'm like, there's going to be some great questions because, you know, it's your show. It's so sexy and on point. You know, you asked me that, and I just immediately started thinking about this really lovely collection of men that, as I say in the book, I had the pleasure of unwrapping, and it wasn't all about sex because there's only that in a few chapters, and yet some of it was about that. So for me, it's like just getting to experience them being themselves. You know what I mean? Like, that's when you can just be with someone and they're being themselves. It's so sexy. Like they're because they're confident and they're clear, and you just get to witness it, and you know, every two people have a different dynamic. So to me, that's just, with each one of these guys I'm thinking about now, I'm like, there was just so much pleasure in discovering what that dynamic was between us, and just getting to know them for who they be in the world and who they were showing up as in my world. That to me just brought so much pleasure.
Oh, I love that. because truly pleasure isn't just sex slang. As we talk a lot about on the show, pleasure can be sexual, but it really is like the experience of having a body and receiving sort of like the sense of joy in embodiment. I've had a few different descriptions of pleasure that have come to me before, but that's one of them today. So one of the things I also wonder about with in terms of like the indisputable gifts of men, you know, as I saw that title, I thought about like, what is that to me? Like I wondered like, what are some of the things that I would say are definitely gifts of men, and whether I've been in relationships where there might have been struggle or there's been, you know, maybe even abuse or trauma. And then there have been relationships that have been very kind and caring. There's been like, I've had quite a spread, I guess you could say, of different people. Spread your legs, spread your fun, spread all the stuff.
I love it.
What I could say is one of the indisputable gifts for me, for men, is that there's such a different approach to life that has me have to become more present in myself with me, like being present in my body and being aware enough to know, like if I was in an abusive relationship, it's like, wow, how present do I require being to get out of this? And then even with kindness, it's like, how much did I avoid that, and how present do I require being with that? But there is something about, for me, with men, is that it requires me to be incredibly present or I just miss out. And I have an easy time being present with women, no problem. Whether it's in sex or play or fun, that's easy. But with men, it's like, it's almost like I have to step up my game and like become truly even bigger presence. And for me, that's one of my indisputable gifts that I see in men, is my requirement to like step up and be present.
Yeah.
So what is something that you find is true for you that way as well?
I love what you just said, because that, you know, when this, again, with this book coming through and me writing it, and it really is that my most dynamic experiences have been with men. And, you know, I have great women friends and I've had wonderful experiences with them too, but there's just something that has occurred with, especially the men in this book, and then with some others, that it's what you're saying, like it's required me to be more present. And when I wasn't present, it, like, you know, the universe would bitch slap me and say, hey, you know, wake up, like you got to be present here and, you know, pay attention and to what's going on. And so they just showed me all that, right? Like, and the other big part of that was just, you know, you mentioned something about joy of embodiment earlier. So much more joy of embodiment, like having these experiences. And I said there was sex with some of them, not all of them, but regardless, like with each one, I became so much more embodied with myself, and it was just so cool to enjoy their bodies and adore their body, and have that in return to just be with these, you know, different men that just thoroughly, you know, enjoyed me and adored me and my body. Like that just, it gave me, I guess, more presence, you know, more clarity, and it's just, I don't want to use the word gift a million times over, but it was just such a gift to experience that with them. Coming from a background where there was so much judgment, and we all, right, there's just so much judgment in our lives, so to have so much judgment, to always be looked at and criticized, and like more makeup, less makeup, not usually more weight, but like less weight, different outfit, right? Like, and most of that coming from women. I mean, it was so rare to ever get that from a man, but I got so much of that from women growing up. So then, you know, to have these experiences where you're just, you know, you're just treasured, that the word treasure is what wants to be shared.
I love that you actually mentioned the, you know, ability to even be with a man, like where you're not wearing the makeup and they're just you're seen as a treasure. And I think, you know, having somebody in your life that can gift that to you or acknowledge the beauty that you are in your rawness, in your, whether you're sad or losing your mind or whatever you're doing. Like, we have a kind of joke in our house that like if I fart, my husband will go, "I love you." So every once in a while I'm like, "Honey, awesome. I'm making chili tonight." He's like, "You really want me to say I love you, don't you?" I'm like, "Hell yeah, I do." So he'll figure out how many I love yous I want according to what I've created for supper. Which
see, but that is so freaking cool, right? And cute and fun, and that's the thing that you get, right? That dynamic only exists, with you two. It's just so cool. Yeah. I just love that.
Yeah, it's a bizarre one. So it's actually carried on not just with my husband, but like Viva will do that too, daughter. And her friends come over and my daughter, not your cat. My cat and her cat and my daughter have the same name. It's a true story.
I love that.
And like, so now her friends come over and they've heard the I love yous and you're welcome and like for all the like weird things we do in this house. So now they've all adopted it too, which is like carrying on the tradition of like just funny behavior and having gratitude for it. So when
that is a perfect, and I was gonna say that's a perfect example of gratitude, of like where many of us would complain or criticize or belittle or do something, you know what I mean? That energy, you've taken it and done something so different, right? And now it's fun and it adds laughter and joy and it creates this, environment of gratitude. Like that's exactly what, I want the book to do. That's exactly what I'm asking people to choose, is what you're doing.
Fun. And I just want to let people know that it's not always like roses and lollipops, but there's definitely like there are things where I've noticed that if we just shift the energy, right? If you just shift your thought even 1 degree, they say, if you just think about that, even if you were walking and you veer off course for 1 degree, you end up in such a totally different place than if you stayed on that same path. So for me, when I'm looking to create change, it's that 1 degree, and how much change can that 1 degree shift of attitude or perception create. And so, gratitude for the weird things, right? And there are things that I don't think about that are not significant to me, and that were before when I was single or when I was in a relationship where I had somebody who was in a relationship with somebody who was maybe irresponsible. I'm just going to use the word irresponsible, say for like finances, where they just spend it all and have zero financial awareness. So for me, my current situation is that my husband is so financially aware and he loves graphs. So he'll show me the graphs. He's like, "Do you want to see our graph for this month?" And then we have this thing in our house too, where if you're top earner, you get accolades for being top earner for the month.
You guys are awesome.
So I often get top earner, which is super fun, and he likes to tell his buddies that he's just waiting for me. There's a certain amount that he feels that when we get to that he can retire and I can be the continual top earner, and he's going to do other stuff, which is fun and cute. And I'm like, hey, that's cool. I like being the top earner, so I'll take that. And it's kind of become like an ongoing joke even to his buddies. They're like, well, who's your top earner this month? And he's like, it's Milica again. She's the top earner. Yeah. And he's totally cool with it. Which is so neat to actually have be in a relationship with somebody who, that when I am top earner doesn't try and take all my money from me or spend it all on me. Or that when I am, top earner, I can celebrate it, right? Which is so cool.
So that's the perfect example of just being a different energy, because you could take that same exact scenario, like top earner, and that could become incredibly emasculating, right, for a man. And I had some of that occur in my my marriage, my first marriage, because I made more than him, and I had become so much of that strong, that overbearing energy, or just more, not that masculine energy is overbearing, but my energy became much more masculine than my spacious, kind of softer self, and it became emasculating for him, and it just felt so off balance, right? We didn't know about these things and have these tools that we have now where you can to have that and have a different energy. And that's where consciousness comes into play with all of this. So I love hearing what you're saying, because it's about the energy. And if you can be a different energy with things, you can create something, like you're saying, that 1 degree, you can create something so loving and kind and generous and cozy and sexy and and it's all about paying attention and being aware of the energy and the choices and the alignment of your words and your actions, and it can be so different.
It's really actually cool for me to observe that, because my reality before this relationship was very different for many years. So, so why I say that is because I know that relationships can change, and I know there's a possibility to have the relationship you actually would like to have. And what I do know is that it started with me. So I know that it was me, that I needed to have a different, for one, clear my crap on a lot of these things you've been talking about, the bitching about men. So I was raised in an environment where my mom actually really loved her father and her brothers, but then somehow she ended up dating, and then crap happened, and she started to resent men, even though she was raised by and grew up with very loving and generous, relatively generous people for the time. It was a lot of hearing the message over and over again about men are this and men are that. And I'll notice that my mom still has that point of view, and she tries her best. She does things consciousness related. She still has that point of view. And when my daughter goes to hang out with her for the weekend, I'll notice that my daughter comes back with this attitude. And I'm like, hey, wait a second. Is that grandma's? Or where's that coming from, girlfriend? So it's to get, also for me as a mother, is to be able to facilitate for my daughter to not hate men and not to perpetuate the hate of men, because what I know is that what that attracted for me was a lot of hate in relationship and anger and resentment, and because I couldn't see the gift at the time. Well,
it will also perpetuate into the next generation, right? If that held true for your daughter, and you weren't being that potent possibility of something different with inserting consciousness into the situation, and when she comes home from grandma's house, right, she could have, or if you weren't doing that, grow up and have kids, and if she had sons, right, then that it's like collateral damage, and it comes out on her kids, and then it would just keep going on and on. I had one of my first readers has a daughter. How old's Ziva? Your Ziva?
She'll be 12 in March.
Well, she's right about the same age as my friend's daughter, and she read the book, and she's like, this is what I want to teach my daughter. Like, this is how I want her to grow up in the world, and have a different point of view, and create something different in her relationships, when she goes out in the world and dates. And then I've had people that have sons, and they're like, oh my gosh, I want my sons to grow up, being liked, and not immediately being not liked because they're men. And that's the part that kind of breaks my heart when I meet men or women with sons who are like, this thing that's going on has gone so far over in the other direction that, men are hated. And it's not all men on this planet aren't doing this thing. It's, of course, it's however many, I'm not going to say a handful, it's more than that, but it's not every single man. And I got to tell you, every man that I have met that has read the book, and it's been pretty 50-50, talking about equality, the amount of men and women that have read the book so far, it's pretty 50-50, and the feedback that I'm getting, I'll get an email or a phone call, it's right down the middle. I'll get, a message from a man, I'll get a message from a woman. I'm like, wow, this is really awesome. And the men are so grateful. I get high fives. They're like, oh my God, when they hear the title of the book, or they're like, what, or the sad thing, or they'll be like, oh my God, really? Or the tide's turning, or I thought you all hated us. You don't all hate us. I mean, these are the things that men are telling me when they hear about the book or when they read the book. So let's not forget that they have feelings too. Yeah.
Yeah, they actually have feelings.
They do. And
wow, what a revelation.
They actually have feelings, and I honestly, when you talk about the awareness of this book and my awareness is that men are more sensitive than women. I really believe and get that they are more sensitive, and it might be this accumulation because they haven't been allowed to be, right? Like, it's all this stuff that they've been told that they have to be and that they can't express. And yes, now we're like, yes, you can. But, you know, I'm going to raise my hand. I've done this before, and I'm much better at it now. But how many of us, when we're in one of those intimate moments with a man and they're trying to talk to us, like we talk over them, we interrupt them, and we're like, because we want to agree with them or insert our opinion or something, instead of just giving them the space to be vulnerable and share. Like, sometimes we just barrel right over them too. So if we're willing to give them space in this, you know, like the soft, and just let them show up. So many of them, they show up in the most incredible ways.
I have to say that's so poignant, and I wonder too, as you were talking about that, there's some things were popping up for me about like men and their sensitivity. And I know a lot of men, like my dad could cry at the drop of a hat. Like he could be touched by a wedding. He could be touched by many things. He has a very other side to him as well that's very angry and polarized, but he's got an incredibly soft side that he doesn't usually let out. I seem to be the person that gets to see that a lot. And I find that for the most part, actually, for the clients I have that are men, there seems to be a desire, like they actually have a desire to be vulnerable.
Yes.
And there's a desire to connect. And it is like you were saying, like just being so trained for so long to maybe repress that or suppress that. So I'm wondering, when we come back from the break, if you can share for us some tools from the perspective of like being a woman, of how can we start to be the space for men to be vulnerable with us? What can we do and choose and be to allow that to show up more? So I'll let you think about that as we go to our next commercial.
Thank you.
Yeah. So you're listening to The Pleasure Zone here on Inspired Choices Network, and we'll be right back after this commercial.
Are you secretly a voyeur, wondering what's going on in other people's sex lives? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual evolution? Are you interested in people who are pioneers of different sexual and pleasurable practices? Lean in now with Milica Jelenic, where she will entice you and your body to know your own pleasure zone. On the Pleasure Zone radio show with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic, you'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life, and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for The Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Interested in masturbating for money, copulating for consciousness, and pleasuring on purpose? 21 Days of Sexual Magicism with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic is an exploration of tools, processes, and actions that you can use to create more for your life, your body, your money inflows, and so much more. Graduated learning for all levels of interest. Learn at your own pace via video classes or join the yearly live class. Take a peek at www.milicajelenic.com.
This is The Pleasure Zone with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today from the U.S., call 815-880-TALK. That's 815-880-8255. From Canada, dial 613-800-8736. Or you can Skype us at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com. Or send your questions or comments via email to info@milicajelenic.com. Now, back to the program.
Hello, 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 and welcome back, sweet pleasure seekers. I'm so grateful for all of you listening in, either listening in live or listening in via podcast. There's so many ways to listen in live. We have over 50 different ways that you can listen in live, and also over 50 ways that this particular episode and a lot of these shows are in podcast form. So you can find us on things like iHeartRadio, Spreaker, Spotify, and literally, if you'd like to find all of the affiliate links to maybe your favorite way of connecting to podcasts, you can go to inspiredchoicesnetwork.com, and you can find our, what do we call them? They're like our supporters, they're our connections. I don't know. There's a name for them. They're our partners. Thank you, Keisha. So yeah, you can find our partners, and that way you can know how to locate us in many, many different ways. And also check out Danna's show too. So she's live on Wednesdays at 4 p.m. EST, 3 p.m. CST, 2 p.m. Mountain, and 1 p.m. Pacific. So she's Luscious Leadership. Check that out, because you're going to find a lot of episodes. And if you really like particularly this episode where we've been talking about the indisputable gift of men, she's been doing a pretty much an entire series lately. Most of the shows have been related to that, with different guests talking about that. So lots to talk about, and lots of interesting conversations to listen to and join in on too. So keep your eyes open to future conversations about this too. If you'd like to join in, we have a chat room on Inspired Choices Network, and we have people in the chat room today with lots of great questions and contributions, and so grateful for that. Love having folks in the chat room. And you know, if you're really shy about calling in, by all means, join the chat room and let us know what's going on. And you can also contact either of us. So, Danna, can you let everybody know how they can find you and how they can get your book?
Yes. Oh, yes. So finding me is easy. My website is dannalewis.com, so www.dannalewis.com. Everything's on there, links to the radio show, links to the book, my coaching, speaking, all that stuff, social media, it's all on the website. And the book is available on Amazon, so you can go to amazon.com and just type in the Indisputable Gift of Men, and it's available in softcover and then also on Kindle. And then, I didn't even realize this, but it's also available on barnesandnoble.com. So I was super excited when I found that out. So those are the two places right now, and then I'm working on local bookstores. And then I will just ask if you have any connections to your local bookstores. I would welcome those connections, because it's about getting the book out in the world, stewarding this book, because like you said, there's just the book is an awareness and it's an invitation. So just you can get to me through my website.
I love that. Thank you. Lots of different ways to get that. Amazon is such an easy way to get your books, and Barnes & Noble. That's awesome. How does it get any better than that? So just before break, Dan, I posed the question to you about what your awareness is on, like what we as women can be or do to allow men to show up as more of who they are, allow them to be vulnerable to all of these things that we're like, we've been bitching about forever, is that they supposedly don't do. Like, how much have we not been allowing that, and what can we do to have that show up? That's a big question. I get it. Yeah. It's pretty loaded.
It is a big question. It's very loaded. And I have to say, I'm going to respond as a woman, but also, maybe that's one of my first responses should be, be willing to ask your man, what you can be or do different. That would contribute to him, showing up and being more vulnerable. Literally ask your man. And as Milica mentioned, I'm doing this series that's been all about the book in December, and one of this ongoing series will be conversations with men, because I'm like, I only know what I know, but let's actually ask them. I think that's the other biggest thing, is like, ask them. Let them speak, right? Let them speak. So I did my first show, Conversations with Men, with this new guy friend that I met a few months ago that was so excited. Like, he got up in the middle of this, we were at this event, and we were asked to share something, and I shared about the book, and he came right up to me after, and, so we hung, we had coffee. I won't say hung out. We had coffee, and we talked, and then he was on the show, and it was such a great conversation, and I'm like, okay, I have a few more men so far lined up to talk to them, because I want to know too. Like, I'm learning. I'm certainly not not perfect at any of this, but I am willing to enjoy them and appreciate them, I think, in a way that makes a big difference. And the guys in the book have read their chapters, and they're so appreciative, and they're so excited about this project. So apparently I'm doing a couple of things okay. So the first thing is, talk to men. Yeah, ask them. Thank you, Milica. And then another one, here's another really big one. Stop expecting them, meaning men, stop expecting men to be or do what a woman would be or do, right? I hear that all the time. They're like, oh, I would never not return the call right away, and I would never put the dishes, like, just things that we say that we're like, well, that lends itself to you're thinking that he thinks like a woman, and he doesn't, because he's not. So really stop expecting them to be or do what you would be or do, or what your girlfriend would be or do, because that's not who he is. He is a man, and they literally, their DNA is different. Their brains are different, and I get the whole male-female thing is a spectrum, but, like, they're different. So let them be different. And when they don't do something the way you would do it, I want to just say, that's mean, I shouldn't say shut up, but, like, literally, like, my hands are like, when you, like, close your mouth. Like, really? That, I think everyone got that. I'm like, because what happens is so the third thing, right, leads right into the criticism, because if you expect them to be or do what you or another woman would be or do, and then they don't, and then you go into that next thing where then you bitch at them because they didn't be or do it the way you would, now you're criticizing and disrespecting and whatever all of that is, and all of that does is create distance. You may think that that's creating a change, and it might create a temporary change, but I know this from experience, and I've done this in many different ways. I've done it the way that we're saying not to do it, and I've done it the other way, where there's so much more ease and joy. It's like the second you go into that criticism and the nagging and the judgment, all judgment does, as we know, those of us, a lot of us on your show, I know that play in the fields of consciousness, judgment shuts everything down, and it's all bullshit. So if you want to shut things down in your interactions with your man, in your relationship, go ahead, like, judge, because that's what that will do. Being a little sassy, it must be the time of day. But but if you don't want that, then you don't have to, but I'm inviting you to play with this, because this is where leadership comes in. Like, choose something different, Like, think about this. When you're with your girlfriends, I don't know, if you're hanging out with your best friend and she does something and she doesn't do it the way you would do it, do you nag her? Do you judge her? Maybe you do. I don't know, but that's just one way of looking at it. Like, probably you're probably like, oh, so she cuts her tomatoes, horizontally crosswise, and I cut them lengthwise, cool. And you probably just are like okay with that. So where are we not being at with, and that's a tiny little example with men. So that leads into having a lot more allowance for them to show up who they are, and to enjoy them and acknowledge them and appreciate them. Like, that goes such a long way. The praise and acknowledgement. I mean, think about how great it feels when people are like, oh my God, like, I was in charge of salad for the last couple of holidays. I'm like, cool. And everyone loves my salad. I'm like, great. Anytime, like, I will come and bring salad. And there was it was just all love, and like so happy for this beautiful salad that I brought to these different occasions. And it's the same thing. Like, it is that simple. Like, it really is that simple to be present and to not expect them to be who they're not, and to appreciate who they are, and appreciate it energetically, appreciate it verbally, appreciate it through actions, and just give them space. When they're talking, give them space. When they're doing, give them space and let them show up. They can't show up if we don't give them the space to show up.
That is so true. I see that actually a lot in my relationship. And it's actually one of the reasons my husband said that he asked me to marry him. He said that one thing is that I don't hold on to grudges. Well, I don't with him, but I do think I have some grudges I hold on to. I know I do, but he just doesn't know because they're not towards him. But yeah, so it's that I could change my mind really fast or something. And I was like, wow, you make me sound like a sociopath, but you like it, so that's cool. And the other one was that I give him space. I was like, wow, if you know, for my women friends out there who are like, I just want to get married, and why won't he just commit to me? I'm like, well, I wasn't even trying for commitment. I gave him space, physically, emotionally, mentally, to show up. And it wasn't even on purpose. It's apparently just how I am with him. And I'm not that with everybody, frankly. Like, I have not been in the past in relationships. I've been the nagging bitch. And I also have my awareness of that, too, was that I was being a nagging bitch because I didn't actually like the relationship, and it was my way to get out of it. So my question, ladies out there, if you are being a nagging bitch, do you actually like this relationship, or are you trying to get out? Like, if you don't really like the guy and you're trying to make him into you, does this work for you? Just wondering. Right?
Thank you, Milica. Right. If you're not enjoying him and enjoying yourself with him, and I'll really start asking some different questions. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah. Because it's so easy to try and go, oh my God, you keep on doing that the same way, and why are you just driving me crazy? You know I hate it when you do that with the toilet seat or the toothbrush, blah, blah, blah. It's like, if you know this and you're choosing to be agitated constantly because you're making this more valuable than you, and you're making it more valuable than him, you got to question if this is actually the relationship that works for you. So lots of things to look at, because I know people have been in a relationship for like 30 years and the nagging is like chronic, or even longer. And some people thrive on it. So that's why I ask, does it work for you? Because some people thrive on it, and that is a relationship that works for them because that is an energy that's familiar and they're not really looking to have anything different. And that's cool. That's choice. But if you're looking for something different, guess what? You can contact Danna. You can contact me. So Danna is a personal life coach, and she has experience in this. She can coach you through. I am a sex and intimacy coach. So definitely contact one of us. Make your way through this. Create some change. And we can create some change on the planet together. You know, actually being kindness to one person. And we just think about this, right? Like, just even when you're kind to one person, what that changes. And I noticed that when I first started teaching, actually. I did supply teaching for years, and the very first year I did that there was a boy in my class who was very upset all the time, and he was stressed. And so I just offered for him to come with me on lunch, which was weird, and I wasn't really supposed to do that. But he followed me around the school for the whole hour, and then every time I would see that kid in town, he would run up to me, and he was like so happy to see me. And I'd given him a tool on how to let go, and I just showed him, like, blow into this ball and stomp it out and get it out of your system, and he did, and it worked for him. So, you know, sometimes just give people the space to be them and invite them into your life. And our show is done, Danna.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to The Pleasure Zone with sensual movement artist Milica Jelenic. The Pleasure Zone returns next Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Mountain, and 5 p.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. We hope you'll join us. Until then, have the best week of your life by choosing to be turned on.